Hey, happy 4th of July. From the artist always known as Alejandro. Good Independence Day to all my fellow Americans. And thanks for joining me here. It is time to celebrate a good character who represents the good old USA. I'm going to finally do a sketch of one of my faves, Captain America. So here I'm just blocking him out. I want to have him running towards the camera, kind of charging the camera in his very determined, superheroic maneuvers. So I'm doing the just a little bit of the face there, and I just want to kind of have body a little angled. And this way, just blocking out some of the chest area. He's gonna have a big one, Cap is bulky. He's very big and massive. Just doing like a first layer of pencil. Just want to kind of have him running towards the camera. So this leg will be bent. And this one will be straight. And this one should be more forward. It should be more of the forward leg. And then this has a little bend in the back. He means business. And I just did kind of like these blocks. It helped me a lot more this time, doing little block pieces. Not really trying to draw fingers, just these little blocks with the hands so I could get an idea, almost like mitts. I'm like, okay, I like this. Running towards the camera, there's the abs and the waist. Of course, I have to shrink them down. Way too big. And I was like, I'm really not happy with the way that position of his body looked right then and there. I had to redo it. It just seemed too wonky, as you can see. I have to draw his little shorts. And I'm drawing a traditional Cap. You'll see what I mean. There's his kneecap. Haha. Hey, I've known Captain America for all my life, so I'm going to call him Cap. If you know Cap long enough, you can call him Cap. That's the way I think of it. And I'm going to fix that lower body there. Yeah, it just seemed a little too far down. There isn't that much. Again, this is our penciling stage. Even if you're on a pencil and paper out of the digital world, you can still do this, but give yourself some room. Sometimes I just have an idea and start doing it and doodling. I have to realize, well, he's got to be shrunk down a little bit more to fit in the canvas. So just some of those lines just bother me. I got to get rid of them. I hope you enjoy your 4th of July today if you're celebrating. Barbecue action, drawing, pool, beach, parties, fireworks. Do it to it. I know I am, one way or another. Obviously, drawing is something I love to do every day. So I'm going to fix that foot there. It was looking a little too much bulky. Here I decided to bring in some of the muscle groups that would be working on that foot. I mean, Cap is charging at full force, and he's got super soldier serum running through him. So he's in top athletic shape. You could call him Steve Rogers, his real name, but I call him Cap. So in this pencil face, just getting an idea, a rough sketch idea. I did a few more contour lines for his muscles and that sort of thing. Now I'm going to do a little more detail. I'm going to start drawing the actual look with another pencil layer, still keeping a raster layer. The pencil works better on there. So, and I've been drawing Cap forever. I can't really remember my earliest memory, but there was a binder. I had a binder that it's something about, I think, a bomb. And it was a Jack Kirby sketch on the binder that had Cap. He had the shield in front of him. I think it was in his left arm. And his fist kind of behind him. Total Jack Kirby sketch. I think Falcon was in the background. And I love that binder. I'm like, oh, this is Captain America, huh? And of course, I do remember the cartoon. Now, it was taken from the comics. There really wasn't a lot of range of animation in those comics, but man, I mean, those cartoons. But man, to see Captain America moving and talking and like, whoa, there's some music. And do you remember the song? Well, here are the lyrics. I have them right here in front of me. And I'm going to do why not? Let's sing along with the Captain America theme song. So here we go. When Captain America throws his mighty shield, all those who chose to oppose his shield must yield. If he's led to a fight and the duel is due, then the red and the white and the blue will come through when Captain America throws his mighty shield. Thank you. That's for you, Cap. Got to raise a little bit of the top of his head. His head is a little too big. One of these days I'll get the proportions right. We'll figure it out together. But the beauty is the pencil phase, you can get away with a lot of stuff and just work through it. I'm giving it looks like he's really angry there. But he's an Avenger. He's come to avenge, man. He means business. Follow him into battle. That's one of the greatest attributes of Cap. I mean, obviously, we know the story. Steve Rogers was this lanky, skinny kid who just wanted to do his service for our country. But he was too thin, too weak, frail. But someone saw something in him and said, you know what, maybe he should be our test case for Captain America. Not to digress, but yes, I wanted to do his wings. Our MCU Cap does not have wings popping out of his helmet. They're drawn on there, but I want the wings coming out of his face mask. That's my Cap. Going back to his origin, then the scientists figure he's got the spirit to be a champion. Let's give it a whirl. And they give him the super soldier serum, and bam, here we go. Massive, bulky dude. But then these Nazis, when in the movie they were Hydra, they killed the scientists, and the super soldier serum died there. There was only one, and it was in Steve Rogers. But he had to prove himself to become Cap, get that shield of his. They did a good version of the movie. I was a little leery of Chris Evans being Cap because I knew he played the Human Torch, and he had a small role in not another team movie. I'm like, this is Captain America? I don't know. But once he took on the role, I'm like, oh yeah, this is Cap. And he did such a great role. Great job playing that role in so many of the MCU movies. It's a shame to see him become an old man and retire. It's like I knew this was coming. These actors can play the roles oh so long. And it's like for a lot of us, the MCU ended with Endgame. Because we no longer had Cap and we no longer had Iron Man. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movies. But anywho, I might have had Captain America comics when I was young. I was going between Marvel and DC a lot, as you probably already know. But that binder was a fixture for me. And then I've told you about the comic books and records. There was one that had Captain America called And a Phoenix Shall Arise. It had him and Falcon. Funny enough, Falcon was swinging on a rope. He didn't have his wings, which seems really bizarre. And even in the story they chose, the Phoenix was Baron Zemo's son. and Cap never threw his shield. Like, that seems a little silly. You have a perfect opportunity for Cap to throw his shield and take out the Phoenix, but nope. But then eventually the Phoenix falls into a vat of adhesive X and becomes the new Baron Zemo. They had a good voiceover actor playing. It was very heroic. He actually played Mr. Fantastic's voice and others in those Marvel Power records. Check them out. I'm sure it's online somewhere. You could look it on YouTube. And of course, I had my Mego action figure of Captain America. It was a cloth costume with these plastic red gloves. He had his shield. And just this kind of frozen expression. You could see his irises. It was just these black dots. But they didn't have really the skin. Like most of his mask, you could see some of the skin around his eyes. But he had this outfit. It was just kind of a one piece. I know I'm drawing like the underwear bottoms. Hey, that's how I've seen Cap all these years. And the wings on his head. But everything else, even in the MCU, he's still got the star and the stripes. The shield. There is a tool to make circles, but in the pencil phase, if you're doing a raster layer, you can't do that. So I just penciled in the shield myself. A nigh invulnerable weapon. There's one thing that bugs me in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Watch it again on the Causeway fight sequence, which is a great fight sequence, when the Winter Soldier attacks Cap, the Black Widow, and Falcon. Well, he fires a missile at Cap, and Cap blocks it with a shield, and then Cap is thrown back off the bridge and into a bus down below. Now, hold on a second. Captain America's shield can withstand Thor's hammer, as we saw in Avengers. And a simple either bazooka or rocket knocks him back. I can maybe go along with that if maybe Cap was on one foot, like running or something. But this shield should have withstood that blast. I mean, it caused for some cool action that he was thrown into a bus down below, and then the fight had to go down to the streets. I guess that was their way of getting him down there and off the causeway. But watch it again. That's like, that shield should have been able to withstand that. In Marvel's Superhero Secret Wars that came out in the 80s, Cap goes up against Ultron, and Ultron's shooting with a very lethal ray, and Cap's blocking that with his shield. And then he has the Human Torch with him, who goes supernova, and Cap hides behind his shield as Torch is going supernova, maybe like 20 feet from him, and nothing happens to him. That's how good the shield is, guys. Come on. I know I'm nitpicking, but that's the comic nerd in me. So now we're going into the inking phase. I am using the G pen again. I'm staying away from the Turnip pen. I'm finding the G pen flows a lot more smoothly and does what I want it to do. And of course, this is a vector layer, so now you can manipulate things a little easier and do your line edits from your vector eraser. Still everything I was doing by hand. Like I said, I've been drawing Cap forever. In my earlier sketches, that's when I drew them with nubs for hands. They had no fingers, no thumbs, just these round nubs. I actually got to find a picture. I do have a picture of Captain America. Maybe I drew him in the 2000s or something, fist bumping the way I drew him when I was a little kid. The one with the nub. It's cute. I'll have to bring that one back as a bonus video down the line. Yeah, look at that face cap. Now, in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, they had a really good line. I think they were 10-inch? 10-inch or 12-inch? Now, these characters had cloth costumes, but the detail and articulation was a lot more. But Cap's expression was like crazy. It's like he had his mouth open like he was in the middle of shouting something. Like, get me a new cell phone tower. No, he wouldn't say that, but you know what I mean. It just seemed like such a crazy expression for him to be frozen on his face with his mouth wide open. And yeah, he had the angry look in the eyes, but the mouth wide open? But that costume had a lot more detail. The cloth was better. He had a good shield. I think I bought him at a comic book convention, New York Comic Con. So I had him for a while, and then Marvel did the plastic ones, the Marvel Legends line in the 2000s, and he just had kind of a still expression. And so much articulation on them. You can actually move the fingers on some of these characters. And they were, I think maybe 8-inch? Depending on the character. I mean, if you had someone like Hulk or Sasquatch, they'd be a lot bigger. Yeah, these shoulder blades, man. Still, no matter what, in the digital world, I have a few issues trying to get these things right. Basically, I think I've been very serious, and maybe a little too serious, about getting the anatomy correct. Really, really meticulous about it. And then sometimes I just let go and trust myself. It's like I've been drawing for a while. I mean, I've drawn characters and I kind of know where things go. So just trust the process. For my fist, I did look at my fist again. See that little curve in there? You know, in this ink phase, I don't do too much detail. And then moving on to the chest. Well, his rib cage line. And the star. I did this one by hand, too. You see, it's not going to be a straight-on star because it's bending to his body movement. You know, if it's a costume, there's going to be movement to it. It's not going to be a flat-looking star. And of course, he's going to have a big bulging chest because he's jacked. He's so muscular. I have to use Arnold's voice. Imagine if Arnold played Captain America. Avengers assemble. Chris Evans did a great job. Winter Soldier was the best one, regardless of the Causeway thing, but the sequences and the spy thriller thing, that fight in the elevator. Before we get started, does anyone want to get out? Great directing by the Russo brothers, who would go on to helm Civil War and Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. I'm having a little trouble with this. And I just realized, you know what, the stripes begin kind of where the ribs stop. So I keep that in mind. And it could curve with his body. It's a costume. Of course, I got into the Avengers hardcore. I loved my teams, and he was the leader. You know, the original Avengers lineup in the comic books was the Wasp, Ant-Man, Hulk, Iron Man, and Thor. Cap did not show up until issue number 4 back in the 60s. And he was that missing piece. They needed him. I mean, they lost the Hulk like after the first issue. So they needed someone else to lead them. And they found Steve in the Ice. It was a great way to bring him back. And luckily they discovered him and not someone else. And there he was. Now then I started getting, when did I start getting into Avengers? I got into the Avengers in the 80s. I really got into West Coast Avengers too, but the regular Avengers had a place in my heart. And I think in the 90s they had the Onslaught, where a lot of people from the Marvel Universe seem to die. And then, like, the guys from Image Comics took over, and then you had Rob Liefeld doing Cap, Jim Lee doing some characters. So here I'm using a circle tool. Yeah, maybe cheating, but it's going to give me a perfect circle. And in the vector layer, you can manipulate the size and rotate it. Hey, I wanted an almost perfect shield. It should be. So I'm resizing it. I have to take a step back here. Just see if it's big enough. I'm really not digging how. I think it just needs to be just a little bigger. I mean, it is Cap's shield. The shield is probably from his chin to his belt buckle. I think that would be the right size. It's a big weapon. It's got to protect him. So what I do here now, to cheat even further, what I'm going to do is copy the circle. I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy that circle. Check this out. So you could do a little right click and copy, and you could either just paste in the region or paste it separately and put it back in there, and then you could start shrinking it down. Hey, let me try that again. I'm not too satisfied there. Let me try that again. Okay. Because you start shrinking, then you got to still have the proportions. Now you have so many angles to shrink it down. You just got to be aware. Is it going to be the same exact? It should still be the same exact circumference as the outer layer. Because, as you know, Captain America's shield has 2 red stripes. And in the middle there's white. And then the center is the star with the blue. And then, of course, in the background, we want to make it a little thinner. You know, the shield is a little more towards camera, so we want the background a little smaller. So see, there's that circle. I'm going to shrink this down some more. So it fits in there. Just have to do a few adjustments. Even rotate a little bit. Because usually there's the red, then there's a kind of a... They're almost equidistant, I should say. Looking good, right? Now, I don't know if you remember. Going back into the 70s, they had like a Captain America TV movie. And Cap was like Evel Knievel. He had a motorcycle helmet as his mask. He had the wings on the motorcycle helmet. Oh my goodness. And his shield was transparent. I'm like, this isn't Captain America. What is this? I'm editing this part with the star here. You kind of get the idea. I did the regular star. I could probably have used some lines, but the star is going to be at a bit of an angle. And I was kind of do the traditional, crisscrossing of the star thing, but soon realized like, it's not working for me. So let me just do my own thing and do it manually. And then I think 1990 or 91, they had a live action Captain America movie that went straight to video. It was filmed in Italy and actually starred a relative of Matt. Was it Matt Salinger? J.D. Salinger. Yeah, I think Matt Salinger. J.D. Salinger's... I forgot what he was. And the worst thing is he had Captain America. He had a rubber ear outside of his cowl. Yeah. Not his real ear. They had a rubber ear as part of the mask. So sad. Anyhow, his star needs to be a little bigger. I've seen the movie. It's laughable at best. It's like, I got to see this at least once in my life. I'm like, yeah. I think the Red Skull was Italian. Yeah, they made him Italian. So, yeah. It's pretty scary. Thank God for the MCU. Righted that wrong. All right. Now it's time for those little details. Still using the G pen, but I'm going to make it a 3. So make the details a little more fine. Now, as you can see, some of the lines I haven't fixed yet. I should have done that beforehand. So make sure you do that before you start doing your details. It didn't really affect me that much, because when I'm done with all these little details, you'll see the lines are a little more refined, as I want to say. But jumping back to the Onslaught thing, then they had Heroes, was it Heroes Reborn, I think. So they brought everybody back to the traditional MCU after the Image Comics guys left. And then they relaunched Avengers 1 with Cap and a whole new team. But actually they had every Avenger. And then like the next issue, Morgana Le Fay, who's a sorceress, cast a spell, and they were all sent back to like King Arthur's time, and they had different costumes. God bless George Perez for having to draw all that. I think he drew just about every Avenger in a new costume. And then a few issues later, they picked the team, which was a fun run. And it went for a while until Avengers Disassembled, where they had the worst day, and Avengers Mansion was destroyed, some teammates were killed, and the team disbanded. Until New Avengers, maybe less than a year later. And Cap led that team, which all started with a breakout on the Raft, a maximum security prison for supervillains. And they break out. And so Cap, along with Iron Man, gathers a new team consisting of Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, the Jessica Drew one, Luke Cage, and somebody else. Wolverine, who they find in the Savage Land. I did an audio comic for that. Yes, I did. I don't know if I have it on top. You know, YouTube will block things because of musical rights. Hey, if you want to ever hear it, I can float you a copy. It was fun doing it. Yes, I did the girls' voices too. But it was fun doing Wolverine because I imitated the guy who did his voice for the cartoon. The 90s cartoon. But an interesting thing there is that, you know, Wolverine, he goes by a different code, but they still offered him membership. And Tony tells Steve Rogers that, you know, the original Avengers didn't come together until we found that missing ingredient, and that missing ingredient was you, Cap. But for this time and these problems and this situation, he is you. Wolverine is that missing ingredient. And he can go to that place we can't. Very well written there by Mr. Brian Michael Bendis, and drawn wonderfully and illustrated by the master David Finch, who has a YouTube channel that's helped me a lot in understanding the anatomy and where I can improve. And then Ed Brubaker had a run on Cap, which was, wow. It was like every issue was like, what's going on here? I mean, I don't think I got into the comic until they killed off Cap in the Civil War in comics. After the Civil War, he was shot and he was dead. I don't know how they resurrected him, because I had to stop collecting comics at that time. But then I watched how they continued the story without Cap until I couldn't collect comics, and that's when Bucky took over as Cap, and he had a gun. He basically had almost the same costume, except the lower area of his costume was black. Interesting. Well, even to this day, I really don't collect comics religiously. I'll check out the occasional trade paperback if I find one. Or thankfully, there's the app called Hoopla. Thank you so much, Hoopla, for existing. And you're able to put all these comic books there. Read so many stories. I was even rereading New Avengers. And then, Captain America just had a traditional belt back in the day. But then as you got more modern times, they had these belt with all these pouches in it. Hey, Cap might need some beef jerky, some granola to munch on in battle. He's got to stay fit. Because that's what's in there. Because I've never seen him use them. I don't really. What are the pouches for? Maybe walkie-talkies and little gadgets like that, because he just uses his shield. It's not like he takes anything out of those pouches and hits anybody with them. Or maybe some ball bearings would work. If you throw them with your super serum strength, that could do some damage. So I just wanted to add a little more of my shading here. I'm doing like the little cross-hatching. And there's the little detail. His shield is coming from that angle. I'm going to move on to the leg muscles. Just taking a look around, like, all right, are we looking proportionate? Got to have those muscles in the leg. With Cap, they're going to be jacked, baby. For a brief time, he became the U.S. agent. I'm sure comic book fans remember that. It was basically the same costume, except the blue was black. And I think he had his star at a different spot. Because that's when he kind of had to step away from the Captain America mantle. The government was being a jerk to him. He still wanted to fight because it's in his nature. He wanted to do good and help people. He had an Avengers team that had Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Thor, and Gilgamesh. That was a peculiar run. And I also did a comic book for Avengers Under Siege in the 80s. Cap was in that story, and that's when a ginormous Masters of Evil took over the mansion and beat the crap out of poor Jarvis and beat up Black Knight. They cast Captain Marvel, Photon, into the Dark Dimension. They had a really crazy master plan. They captured Cap. They beat Hercules near to death. And then Wasp was the only one free, but she got help from Ant-Man, and then finally Thor and Dr. Druid, who became a member eventually. That was one where I gathered a lot of friends and actor friends I knew to do voices for the characters, and that came out really good. I think that's... If I have a link to it, I'll put it in here. Because I have a webpage for Spreaker.com. It's where you could do podcasts and radio shows, and I think I put them on there. All kinds of friends of mine. That was a project back in the late 90s, early 2000s I put together. I did Captain America's voice. I kind of like him to talk like this. I'm almost emulating the guy who did him in Power Records. Because mind you, there was no Chris Evans, so I was kind of modeling him after that. I wanted him to sound like the man. Serious, someone you want to follow into battle. That's the great thing about Cap. You want to follow him into battle. No matter what, he's the one to lead. He knows how to lead. I was doing some cross-hatching too with his muscles here. So I see that happen a lot. And usually with really muscular people, it just gives you a little more definition. Up close, it's like a little strange, but when you zoom out, it's going to look really good. That little thigh muscle, and there we go, that little few lines right below the belt. Just a little shadow. Those pouches are going to be casting a shadow. Just erasing some of these lines. Now I'm going to add some lines to his knuckles, fingers. Decided to go this way. It seemed better instead of going straight down the other way. And they're going to be shaded because the shield's right over his fingers. Looks nice, huh? Yeah. I'm going to I am putting these lines on his shield on a separate layer. You know, it's good to have this. You're going to go in a circular motion with that. It's just kind of a nice reflection. It gives you a little more depth to the shield. And usually that's all I ever see. They might have some stuff on the other side, so I think I'm just going to add maybe over here just a little bit more lines, not as many. Now for the star area, this is usually blue behind the star, but it's dark. So what are you doing, man? I got a plan. I'm going to do some cross-hatching jive here, because usually by as close to the star, it's a little more black or dark. So I just decided to do this cross-hatching stuff. And then I'm going to go back in and start erasing around it. Since it's a vector, it could erase a lot quicker. And then I'll have an interesting design back there. I think I might add something more. So just erase some of this. Is there anybody out there that actually has a cap shield? Oh man, I would love one. That is one of my bucket list collector's items. A full-size cap shield. But I'd walk around town with it, yeah, wouldn't you? No. Be fun to have, though. So see, look at that. See, where you see the lines, you see a little bit more of what I'm trying to do there. I just kind of... It looks great from a distance, doesn't it? Now I just wanted to add a little more shade underneath him, and basically I think we're done here. You know, Cap's looking pretty sharp. I just have to thicken the lines, as you know I always like to do. But I won't record that, but I'll use my line thickening tool. But I wanted to just give something for him to stand on, and I thought, let me use the airbrush to just give him a little ground, a little shadow, just something for him to running on. I just don't want him to run on nothing. Just gotta go in and erase, and that'll be it. So came up pretty good. Cap loves Independence Day, and I'm sure you love celebrating it with Captain America. See the movies if you want. You know, it's a good way to do that. Read some of Captain America's comics, and of course, draw along with me with Cap. I'd love to see some of your drawings. That's what all about. Drawing's fun and enjoyable and a good time. That's what I aim to do here on my channel. Follow along. Even on Independence Day, we have a great character to draw. Here he is. And this is what I was wanted to show him, just by himself on the screen, so you could see what the drawing looks like without the Clip Studio Paint stuff in the background. Pretty sharp with the nice thicker lines. And that's it. Thanks for joining me on this 4th of July, drawing Captain America. Until next time, this is the artist, always known as Alejandro, bidding you a fond adieu and keep creating.